Sup, people? Back looking at the best USA deck for Broken Arrow. One dude, when I first unveiled this, didn't quite grasp that. Obviously, this is my opinion, but I've collated tips from all the vids I've watched and have continued to build on the previous video where I first showed my deck. And I also got some tips in the comments as well. Big one from Mort. Mort told me that he told me to increase long range AA, which I had on 4 missiles anyway. I think that's what he means. I don't see any other option for long range AA. He said to increase Moors to the max, which I agree, they're really good. Switch out the Bradleys for AMPVs. I've also seen a couple of other vids on the fact that AMPVs are better because they've got javelins. And after making that change and running with it, I agree. So I've now got fully upgraded AMPVs, and I can bring a couple of them with the mech teams, and then dropped the Bradleys that I had carrying in the Spec Ops Infi. He said increase Delta Force to 3 and put them on close quarters, and that makes a lot of sense there. That's for clearing Infi. So that's what I've done. Cut mech rifleman and replace with... So that was to get the money to make those changes. I need some mech to be able to take the AMPVs, and I didn't want to sacrifice too many Stinger teams, so I'd switch them for mech rifleman AA, which slightly less range on the Stingers, but not too much of a difference. So that's what I've done there with those. Then he went into tanks. He reckons bring 1 V3, 2 V2s, then some cheaper tanks and ATGM carriers. And that's because the more expensive tanks, you don't actually end up saving enough to bring them out. And I agree with that. I've only got 1 V2 because I tend to use these Abrams a bit more to push. And then I do really like these. I was told ages ago to just dump these all together, but they're so cheap, and if you sit them behind anything that's pushing, they can actually get shots off at quite good range. So as long as you do it properly, these can actually do a lot of damage. And then he recommended to take snipers off AT and just bring them usual loadout. And I actually agree with that. There's really no reason to have them as AT. So yeah, thanks for those tips, Mort. And I played a few matches with those tips, and definitely saw quite a difference. What other changes have I made? I've also upped the Cav Scouts. I really like the Cav Scouts. Not so much for the Javelin, because there's only 3 of them, but their view distance is good. I like putting them near the front. Nothing else really changed in the Recon tab. Then I dropped the grenade launchers to 2, just to get money for other stuff. But I don't usually get out 5 Rangers, but Rangers you just can't go wrong. Yeah, and then the only other difference here, I was dropping the Mech Rifleman MMG, these engineers that seem a bit more versatile. Then changes to the support, I took a second pack 2, kept the same number of SHORADs, kept the PVADs, same transport, and then dropped to 2 Iron Thunders. That's actually been a good change because I don't really need 3. Keeping them supplied is a pain, even with 2. They're expensive to supply, so 3's almost overkill there. 2 does the job. Once you spotted up the ammo, supply caches, it's usually 1 hit. And then it'll still kill like a tank, or whatever you need it to, with a couple of salvos. So, yeah, supplies relatively unchanged except for the extra pack and dropping Iron Thunder. Then I had a bit of contention around the Hallies. So I had a game where the other team was they had Catrans with harms, and I've been the last few games getting up a really good AA net. So the 2 SHORADs, the PVADs and the Pack 2s all sort of near each other, to then be able to take out cruise missiles. So I find that some Russian teams spam them, and that deals with cruise missiles really well, but they brought Catrans with harms, so with seed, so the lock on to radar, and I didn't have the range to kill them. And I talked to a high elo player that I was matched with, and he told me that really the only way to counter that is AA Hallies. So I switched my Comanches over to full AA, and they were really good at taking out Hallies. Like, they were almost unstoppable, but expensive, and for me it kind of defeats the purpose of the Comanche. The view distance is huge, the stealth is huge. This thing, I just feel like it needs to be multi-purpose, because if you're using it properly, it's probably going by itself places. So you could stack it up with AA and it just runs into a Tor, or you could vice versa stack it up with AT and it runs into a Heli. So I think it needs to be multi-purpose. Dropped a Guardian, and I've made them also have Stingers. Honestly, I don't think that needs to be Stingers. Oh, but it's Stingers or ECM. I found that ECM wasn't useful. I didn't actually witness it block anything, and from what I know, it's just an RNG thing. So I'd rather guaranteed Stingers than maybe deflect a rocket. I don't know. Chinook, good supply. And then chucking 4 killer eggs in here with dedicated AA. So they bring a heli push. I'll bring a cheap heli push right back. So that is really that counter to the Catrans with harms. I know it's a very niche thing to be countering, but it can counter other stuff as well. changes to the air, keeping the Raptor. Some other dude had a whinge that my Raptor was too expensive. I think the 4 long range missiles always get a kill at the start. It's pretty reliable. So he can keep his opinion to himself. F-35s and with the seed, but I'm dropping an F-35 and I'm bringing a Nighthawk with 2 cruise missiles because I found that there's nothing really here that can quickly react. Yes, I've got the Hellies, but I don't know, I just find that chucking a cruise missile out can be a lifesaver at the end of a game, like getting that last kill. I just like to have that on hand, ready to go. So they're the changes I've made. And I'm finding this to be more effective, but you'll probably notice I'm really trying to counter everything with this deck, which I know really isn't recommended, especially if you're wanting to play more competitively. Like, it makes a lot more sense to find 4 other people and complement each other's decks rather than trying to counter every situation. And you can also use terrain to counter as well. Like if you have a, I don't know, really heavy deck, you want to make sure that you are mainly positioned around buildings on the map, for example. And then I had some issues with the official Discord. How most people would go into the official Discord and, you know, join a voice chat, get 5 people together, then create a game. And most of the time it's great, but sometimes there's some assholes there that'll like say they're losing their side or their area, their lane, and suddenly it's your fault because you're well garrisoned on your one and you haven't pushed up your guys to help him, and then leave yourself vulnerable. This game, again, it's paper, scissors, rock, right? You need things to counter other things, so you push them all by itself. A vehicle kills it, usually, if it's out in the open, or a heli. So you need a Stinger with it, or you need, you know, the AMPV with it, and so on and so on. So having a group of units that will complement each other is much stronger. It gets you a lot more kills, and yeah, so what? They've lost a flag. You only need it at the end of the phase. They don't need to always be on the flag. So, to people who, I suppose, want to blame others for them losing, just check the scoreboard, and although it looks like someone being static is not helping you, it's potentially just that their units are countering all the pushes that are coming at them. So it looks like they're chill. But hey, I'm only just under 1300 elo, so I'm not an official voice on this subject, but yeah, some people need to chill. It's just a game. Work together. If you start blaming other people, you will lose. If you ask for help, you may lose. So that's my deck update. Let me know what you think. If you have any questions about how I would use each unit, or if you want to critique as well, feel free. Appreciate any sort of feedback. And yeah, give us some sort of indication if you like the vid as well, with a like, because that'll tell me if it's worth doing these or not. But until next time, I will wish you luck, and I'll see you in the next one.